Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to RWR. This is Callie with your explosion update. It's January 25th, 2013. An explosion deep within Iran's Fordow nuclear facility has destroyed much of the installation and trapped about 240 personnel deep underground. The event took place around 11:30 a.m. Monday, Tehran time. The site is located about 300 feet under a mountain, which had two elevators, which are now out of commission. One elevator descended about 240 feet, was used to reach the centrifuge chambers. The other went to the bottom to carry heavy equipment and transfer uranium. One emergency staircase reaches the bottom of the site, and another one was incomplete. Sources say the emergency exit southwest of the site is unreachable. A natural gas explosion and fire have leveled a home in Newport, Kentucky this morning. 3 people were in the house when the explosion ripped through the structure around 4:30 a.m. this morning. Residents were taken to the University Hospital in Cincinnati, and no one was listed in critical condition. The home was engulfed in flames when firefighters arrived. Debris was scattered in the street, and pieces of the home were lodged in trees. The only thing left in the frame home were the foundation and the chimney. The neighboring homes suffered no damage in the explosion. The Tucson Fire Department is on the scene of an industrial building fire in Midtown this morning. The fire department say that firefighters have heard explosions coming from inside the building, possibly from ammunition inside the building at 100 block of West Plata near Grant and Stone. The crews are having to battle the fire from the outside due to safety concerns. Nearby buildings are also being evacuated as a precaution. A fire broke out at the DuPont Red Lion plant Thursday evening. Officials say the blaze began at around 7 p.m. at the plant located in the 700 block of Governor Lee Road in Delaware City. A propane tank allegedly exploded in an area where sulfuric acid is refined. At least 2 other tanks caught fire as the result. No reports of injuries at this time. A gas leak is suspected in an early morning explosion that severely damaged a North Texas home, prompting evacuations of neighboring houses with no injuries reported. The blast occurred around 4:30 a.m. yesterday and shook a neighborhood in Gainesville, Texas, a town about 60 miles north of Dallas near the Oklahoma border. A fire has displaced about 80 residents in a northeast side apartment in Indianapolis, Indiana, Thursday morning. Investigators say the blaze was accidental and found no sign of arson. It happened at the Harrison Point apartment near 46th Street and Post Road. A video of an explosion at an Iranian gas station has shown up on the web. I have no further details on this. People in Ada, Minnesota say they saw a fireball in the sky Thursday morning as a transformer exploded. The power went off around 5:30 a.m. It was on and off throughout the morning. The power has since been restored to about 500 people who were without power yesterday morning. Officials say the power has been pretty consistent since 10:30 a.m. yesterday, and city leaders say the top blew off a regulator at the transformer. A lot of oil is on the ground, causing a big mess that needs to be cleaned up. And last this morning, news that BP and Halliburton have been fined for a fatal explosion at a natural gas compression station in southwestern Colorado. 1 person was killed in June 25, 2012 explosion 15 miles east of Durango. Halliburton and other contractors were doing maintenance work on a BP pipeline at the time. Federal regulators found that a valve on a pipeline was left closed that caused pressure to build up quickly, rupturing the pipeline. OSHA.
But I'd like to take a moment to share with you some factual history about the United States and Iran. From the mid-1800s through World War II, relations between Iran and the U.S. were cordial. Or let me state that another way. For 100 years, U.S.-Iranian relationships were cordial. So what changed? Well, in 1953, the democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh, was deposed in a CIA-orchestrated coup under the name Operation Ajax. You see, the British had controlled Iranian oil from the beginning of the 20th century. Though Iran was supposed to receive 15% of all profits, the British would never permit the Iranians to see or audit the financial records. Mossadegh was so audacious as to believe that Iranians should reap the benefits of Iran's oil. Interestingly, though a Muslim, Mossadegh believed in the Western model of a secular government. So the Brits asked the CIA to oust the democratically elected leader of Iran and install a shill. You know, someone who would be London and Washington's little bitch. The CIA agreed and Mossadegh was overthrown, and the Shah, whose royal prerogatives had been severely curtailed as democracy grew in Iran, was restored to complete control of Iran. Shortly thereafter, deals were made that put the lion's share of Iranian oil profits under U.S. and British control. What a shock. The U.S. then provided massive funding to the Shah's military and secret police. Many of Mossadegh's political allies were arrested, tortured, and some were even executed, all on Uncle Sam's dime. And let's not mince words here. The Shah was Washington's sock puppet. Of course, we know how that ended. In 1979, those who wanted the Iranian government to be in charge of Iran rather than the U.S. succeeded in overthrowing the Shah, and Iran became a Muslim theocracy. So, let me ask you a question. If the people of a Muslim country democratically elected a national leader who believed in a secular government and is what Americans might today call a moderate, and then the United States government overthrows the guy and returns complete power to a dictator with a violent secret police, what type of government do you think the people of that nation might put in place next? If you said hardliners, you'd be right, and that's exactly what they did in 1979, and it has been that way ever since. Kind of makes you think of something like this, doesn't it? Now we come to the Iran nuke deal, which is the real subject of this video. A lot of people are screaming that it's a bad deal. It may or may not be a bad deal, but 99% of the people screaming that have little, if any, idea what the actual terms of the agreement are. What the terms actually are is not the subject of this video. I'd like to discuss with you what this agreement really is, not what you've been told it is. You've been told the purpose of the agreement is to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. How can I put this delicately? That's bullshit. This agreement essentially welcomes Iran into the community of countries with nuclear weapons. That is the true purpose of the agreement. Though no one really knows if Iran has been able to produce nuclear weapons yet, this agreement presumes that if Iran doesn't already have such weapons, it will in the next few years. The EU and the US have imposed stranglehold sanctions against Iran and many of its wealthiest citizens for decades now. We hear a lot about Iran violating its agreements, but Iran doesn't see it that way. The non-US controlled government Iran is not a signatory to the UN Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Sure, the Shah signed it, but I don't think any rational person imagines the signature of Washington's sock puppet could, should, or would bind the current Iranian government. Iran has entered into small incremental agreements with some of the countries that have seized Iranian assets for the purpose of getting their assets released. But think of it from the Iranian point of view. Those assets have been illegally stolen by those governments. Those governments seized Iran's assets for no better reason than to blackmail Iran into capitulation. And it hasn't worked. Why would Iran feel honor-bound to honor agreements made with blackmailers? I know I wouldn't feel ethically bound to honor an agreement I made with a blackmailer. So if Iran is going to possess nuclear weapons, which I believe is inevitable, would you want to be the countries illegally holding Iran's assets in blatant blackmail when those nuclear weapons become operational? How about a suitcase nuke in Dallas? Maybe one in London? Or perhaps an airliner detonates an onboard nuke as it flies over Paris? That is what this deal is about. This deal reflects the reality that Iran has or soon will have nuclear weapons, and the countries Iran might target with those nukes in retribution for the continuing theft of its property want out of that position. I think that's 100% understandable. Will Iran violate the terms of the agreement? I imagine so. They feel no ethical obligation to play by the rules with thieves and blackmailers. I know I wouldn't. What does this have to do with liberty? Well, first, you've been lied to by the United States government. That's nothing new. I've long said the government lies all the time, lies even when the truth would serve it well. Thomas Jefferson believed that liberty could only be kept alive in our nation by the general diffusion of useful information throughout the public. So, do we buy the government's bullshit